German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer coined the term cheap grace. Cheap grace is this idea that you can receive a gift from God without there being something required out of you. By contrast, costly grace requires something out of the recipient. In my experience, everything comes with a cost. I was introduced to my faith at the Providence Missionary Baptist Church on the west side of San Antonio, Texas. It was at that 10-member church that I learned about a God who created the earth and the fullness thereof. It was also in that small, traditionally Black Baptist church that I also gave my life to Jesus Christ at an early age, and I acknowledged my call to ministry at the age of 14. I was also fairly young when I learned about this awesome game called football. When I was 5 years old and my brother Virgil, who I affectionately call Bubba, was 7, my pawpaw bought us a full football set. It was a set of pads, shoulder pads, helmet, pants, jersey. My brother was the Dallas Cowboys and I was the Chicago Bears. And while the package clearly said do not use for actual tackle football, my brother and I spent hours after that Christmas day running at one another, trying to see who could tackle who, like jousting adolescents. From the time that I felt my very first hit, and I gave my very first hit, because I gave a few to be sure, I fell in love with the game of football. When I was born, my mother and different adults, aunts, uncles, and cousins told me that I had something unusually mature about me. If you let my mother tell it, she'll tell you that I was never a baby. I was just a little Fred. And to be sure, I feel the same way. Of course, I've learned some things along the way, but I feel like I came to this earth knowing some things as well. From a very early age, I had a number of high expectations on me. These high expectations continued at the same time that I acknowledged my call to ministry at 14. I also began to dunk a basketball at the age of 14. In 8th grade, I was dunking the ball with one hand. By the time I made it to 9th grade, I was dunking on people with two hands. There were a number of people who would come to the games. In fact, we had just as many people at our freshman basketball games as there were at the varsity basketball games. As I was becoming a great basketball player, I was also becoming a great football player. And if you know anything about this institution called Texas high school football, that was a really big deal. Playing high school football, I was a star, and I would occasionally have my ego stroked as well. And what teenager at that age doesn't like their ego stroked? This, of course, seemed to not mesh well with this Bible boy persona that I had as a 14-year-old, but nonetheless, I enjoyed playing football. In 2006, I signed a rookie free agent contract with the NFL's Houston Texans. And when I signed that contract, I thought to myself, it's finally an opportunity for me to be like Jonah and run away from my call. Nobody will call me Reverend Brock. Nobody knows that I'm known as Bible boy around my friends. And no one was going to argue against me signing $1 million contract, and I would also have an excuse to be busy on Sundays. My experience was short-lived. Just 2.5 months into my contract, I received a call that changed my life. I received a call that I was being cut from the team. And as I sat there outside of a youth football camp that I was working, in fact, it was a camp that I had grown up going to. I was working the camp in the off season, and as I sat there in my brand new truck that I had bought with my signing bonus money, tears began to fall down my eyes. And I called Bubba, my jousting partner from when we were 5 and 7 years old. I called him and I said, Bubba, I've been cut from the team. What do? I'm no longer a professional athlete. I can't go out here and help these kids. And my brother said to me, Fred, you may no longer be a Houston Texan, but you're still a professional athlete. And so I took some time to gather myself and figure out what I was going to do in the coming months. I considered joining the Air Force, But in the end, I decided to go to seminary. When I went to seminary, I didn't quite feel like I belonged there either. This feeling of not belonging it was a feeling that I was familiar with. After all, I am black, and while I know that I belong in a divine sense, I often am in spaces where some people make me feel like I don't belong in an existential sense. Nonetheless, I also felt like I did not belong because I was in the best shape of my life, wondering if I should still be pursuing professional football. I'm also a first-generation college graduate, and there I was in grad school feeling the pressure of having to be successful for my entire family. But I was there, and in my experience, I've learned that just being there can be enough. During my second year of seminary, I joined what's called the Air Force Chaplain Candidate Program. And in the high-stakes, often zero-fail world of military officership, I felt like I had finally found a home. In fact, to date, I've received 3 meritorious service awards for the things that I've been blessed to do as a military officer. But I did share with you that everything comes with a cost. In 2020, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder due to continual trauma that I experienced as a military chaplain. I was prompted, encouraged by my wife, Candace, who was a licensed master social worker, to go see a military mental health professional for severe suicidal ideations that I experienced for the first time in my life. As I made that long walk to the therapist's office, I sat down in the chair full of pride and shame. And as I sat there, the therapist looked over my military files, and as I explained to him my personal accomplishments, he asked me one question. He said, "Dr. Brock, did you think that all of these accomplishments would come without a cost?" As I sat back there, I leaned back in my seat and tears began to fall down my eyes. He then asked me, "Dr. Brock, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do?" And for the first time in my life, since I felt the pressure of other people's expectations when I was 14, I began to think about, for the first time, what I actually wanted, what Fred wanted to do with his life. And so at my wife's prompting, I rented out a studio in downtown San Antonio to continue to pursue my passion for photography. In my lifetime, I've realized that institutions have been both places of comfort and constraint. I've never had a problem achieving and meeting the expectations of the institutions that I have been a part of, but I have had an issue feeling like I belong as it relates to being within those institutions. I'm learning that whether I meet the expectations of institutions or whether I meet my personal expectations, it really doesn't matter. I'm here, and that's enough. Thank you.